Hello, this is Graham, and this is a video from the Silver Wellbeing Photography course. For most of this course, I recommend that you work in aperture priority auto exposure mode. This has got to be the best setup for creative control, and it's the one that most photographers use most of the time. This allows you to change the aperture, and the camera takes care of the exposure. However, there are times when you would like your picture to be a little darker, and other times when you want it to be brighter. Technically, the dark one is underexposed or low key, and the light one is overexposed or high key. Be careful with too much overexposure. If you do this in camera, then you will find it hard to recover details if you want to later. If you really want a very high key image, often popular with baby portraits, then it's best done in post-processing. To begin with, let's just be clear what exposure is. Your camera works by recording the pattern of light falling on a sensor in the body of it behind the lens. The sensor comes out of the factory set to fairly optimal performance for most purposes. By varying the aperture, we control the amount of light landing on the sensor in a given amount of time. By varying the shutter speed, we control the amount of time that light falls for. Finally, we can vary the sensitivity of the sensor, referred to as the ISO. Managing this triangle is key to better photography. This landscape scene was striking because of the light in the clouds. Had the picture simply been taken automatically, it would have been bright and no cloud detail would have been seen. So we deliberately underexpose it. These students were working on a display for their end-of-year exhibition. I wanted to emphasise the students and their attention to the display without showing anything of their work. I also wanted to create an impression of their brightness, a sense of possibility, of the optimism of youth. So here I deliberately overexposed to create a highlighted image. This week, I'd like you to have a go at finding the exposure compensation button, or dial, on your camera. Once you've done so, it'll be easy to dial in a bit of underexposure or overexposure, depending on the type of image that you would like to achieve. Cameras tend to have one of two types of control for exposure compensation. Fuji cameras often have a dedicated dial for it, whereas most others use a small button marked with a distinctive icon, and once it's been pressed, then the multifunction thumb dial changes the setting. Try to discover which your camera has and read the page in your manual. By dialing the exposure down, you're telling the camera to adjust the light that it needs to be satisfied with the image. By dialing the exposure up, you're doing the same, but producing a more highlighted image.